And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, joined as I am every other Tuesday by Harrison Faigen of SB Nation. A fun show ahead of you. We have the Lakers just played last night their 41st game. So we are officially halfway through the season. We're going to look back on that, look ahead to the second half. Try to figure out where our expectations even sit with this team. It's been a weird first half of the season, so we'll figure that out. I want to make the point because it feels like a point worth making that LeBron and AD have 1,000,000,000% proven that they are worth investing in. I can't believe we have to keep having this conversation. It feels like every freaking year. So we're going to talk
that
about
time of year.
And then we're going to tweak power rankings a little bit this week. Harrison put together his power rankings in the way that we normally do this. And seeing as these episodes tend to run a little long, instead of coming up with my power rankings, I actually threw together 5 trade ideas that I think are more realistic than some of the names that we've been hearing about recently. So we're going to go back and forth. He's going to have the funny. I'll bring a trade idea. He's going to bring more funny, and I'll have another trade idea, and so on and so forth there at the end of the show. Before we get to any of that, Harrison, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. Well, you're about to be doing a lot worse when I remind you that the Lakers actually played their 42nd game of the season yesterday.
Did they?
Yeah, because the in-season tournament does not count towards their record, the final game. But it's okay. Even though it doesn't count, the banner flies forever. You know, it's the first ever in-season tournament.
Did you get that made custom?
It's actually a bootleg shirt from outside the crypt that I bought on my way to my car. I saw it and I was like, this is perfect. I have to get it. So, you know, and it's like the salesman told me, he's like, hey, it's the first one. I'm like, oh man, sir, you don't know who you're talking to. I know it's the first one. It's like, these are going to go soon. It's a limited edition. I'm like, oh man, this guy's speaking my language.
I'm surprised you haven't broken out in hives. Like, yeah. I'm surprised that like the color from the shirt isn't draining onto the skin. Like, just with
I washed it. I washed it.
I'm glad that you were able to find that shirt. I can only imagine your face when you found that shirt because you're cheap. I don't see you buying stuff like that.
Well, so I actually do also have the official one, and it's because Mia got it at work, and so she brought it home to me.
Okay.
So I'll bust that out for the next pod, just to remind you.
A quick reminder to everybody: please subscribe here if you're watching live on YouTube. Please subscribe if you are listening on your whatever preferred podcast platform. Obviously, given my current employment, I would prefer that you use Odyssey. But regardless, whether it is iTunes, Spotify, I don't even know. Like, is Stitcher even a thing anymore? I think Stitcher's still a thing.
I have no idea.
I don't know. I thought for some reason that it might have gone under, but if you use Stitcher and it hasn't gone under, subscribe there as well. And again, Odyssey is where I would put. That's where I get all my podcasts now, is on Odyssey. It's actually a really cool platform. I'm a lifetime Apple user, but Odyssey is way easier. It's way. I prefer it way more. It's a way cooler experience. But anyway, yeah, let's dive into this midseason thing. The Lakers have officially played 41 games. They have unofficially played 42 because all that they have to show for that stupid in-season tournament is a week in Vegas that wrecked their season.
And this shirt, the first ever
shirt. I like in that one. Austin still having his Beatles haircut.
Like, yeah. Hey, look, I mean, we don't know when they grabbed the photo for this very legal shirt, I'm sure. I don't know. Am I going to get arrested now? Is this illegal for me to like show this on camera? I don't.
We'll find out.
Yeah, Lakers are going to sue the podcast.
They've been waiting. I'm sure they're
like we got them.
Finally. So if you had to just whittle down these 41 official games, 42 unofficial games,
Just wait till
into
there's
a
an 83rd and 84th unofficial game for the play-in.
That's true. Yeah, it's cool. Great. We're adding games to the season when clearly what the league desperately needs is fewer. But if you had to boil it all down to one collective grade, I think I'm going to surprise people with my grade. Where would you how would you assess this season?
I mean, I think almost by definition it's a C, right? Like they're, I don't know. I guess C is like meeting expectations, right? And expectations were higher. So I mean, dropping the bit about the in-season tournament a little bit, I think I don't know. I still think probably a C. I'll give them a C. I think they deserve it.
You're being nice. You're being really, really nice. It's an F. It has to be an F.
No, it's not an F. Okay,
How can I was
gonna go down to a D, but I knew you'd be more negative, and I mean,
so you wanted to average out to a D, like you would C, so it averaged out to a D. How can it not be an F? They've had LeBron and AD for all but like 3 games.
They won the in-season tournament. Can't be an F when you win the in-season tournament.
How can it not be? They've had those guys for all but 3 games this season. They are currently on the outside looking in of the play-in. They're going to go into this trade season having no idea on any of the people that they're going to be trading. Darvin Ham has proven himself to be a bad head coach. Like we were remember with Frank, it was like, well, he isn't having a very good season, but we still think he's a pretty good head coach. He's like a fair to good head coach. Under the best.
Yeah, I think Frank is like a replacement level head coach. Like he's like a guy that like most coaches, if you get him a roster that is fit for his talents or for what he believes, like he's going to look better. And if you get him a roster that is not his basketball philosophy, like we are seeing in Phoenix, it's going to look a little worse,
Right. But I think Ham is like clearly like really bad to fair.
Should I give him a C too?
At best, he's probably like a mediocre coach, right? You're hoping that he's mediocre. Last night was insane. Last night it was like it was clear the Lakers were up. They had an 8-point lead going into the last 5 minutes of the game. They needed just somebody to stay in front of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Who does he go to? Taurean Prince, baby.
I was remarking to Mia last night that the team started playing like there was about 1 minute left with about like 4 minutes left. And it was very like insane to watch. It's like, guys, they are one basket away from making this real interesting now. And luckily the Lakers came up with D'Lo made the defensive play and was able to hold it down. But yeah,
it was funny because like Prince subbed in and like we were there on playback on All Access Lakers and Prince subbed in and like for the previous 5 minutes or so of gameplay, we were sitting there like, okay, this is clearly this is the lineup that they should go with, right? D'Lo and Austin played really well in that game. Prince had been bad basically for all of the game. Obviously you're going to finish with LeBron and AD, so it was like this is easy. You're up. You go with the guy who helped you get stops, stays in front of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Prince subs back in the very first play. She'll just doesn't even make a move. Like he just like if it was like a PlayStation play, you would just toggle the stick right, and Prince was just like, "Whoa, how did you do that?" And he got a free.
Oh man,
layup.
Guys, he's so fast.
So yeah, I don't know how you don't assess this team with an F this season. You have like legitimate turmoil is too strong a word, I think. Well, no, at various points this season, there has been turmoil within the organization. Like in the locker room, right? Was that has been a thing. Now you have, I reported the other day that there's a rift in the organization as it pertains to Darvin Ham. Like this should have been a nice, easy 40-ish games or so to get you to this point and get you ready for the trade deadline. But it's been a mess. It's been it's been like bullshit after bullshit after bullshit. And I don't know how we don't say that isn't a failure for what these games should have been.
To quote my moral compass, Raj Shapalu, even the devil needs an advocate. And so, I'm going to advocate for this Lakers season. I think, they've had a lot of injuries. that they did not expect. I think the
Yeah.
roster is, if we're going to be as fair to Darvin as possible, I think the roster is less well constructed than we all thought going into the season. Like, I'm not saying that they can't be better. I'm not saying that he hasn't misused guys or whatever, but I do think that there are some puzzle pieces that don't fit as well together as everyone was hoping. And, to sort of make it through everything that they've gone through, all the discord, the terrible vibes, the spending 2 extra days in Vegas in the middle of the season, that, just hardship that no other team has ever encountered before. They I think to be within 1 game of 500, sort of given everything that has gone wrong, how terrible things feel like they've been, does feel like, okay, they're still, they have not completely sort of lost the rope yet, and so to me, that's where an F would be. An F would be like, they're basically out of the play-in hunt. They're going to need a miracle, whatever. Like, they are, I believe, actually in the standings, maybe last night put them back in, but I know going into last night, they were outside the play-in picture. And so again, not arguing that this has been a success. I don't think that it's not over. You know what I mean? And I think that there are ways that this team can recover. It's going to be, as I mentioned on Twitter the other day, it's going to be a second straight deadline where the Lakers are hoping to trade someone named Russ and reignite a title, like sort of a title pursuit.
I did misspeak, Harrison. I will correct myself. And to your point, the Lakers are currently in the 10 spot. They are
okay. So they moved back in.
They've played 2 more games than the Houston Rockets. So like, if the Rockets were to win both of the extra games to get to where the Lakers are, the Lakers would technically be at the 11 spot or whatever. But I should say the objectively correct thing is that they are now the 10 spot.
Yeah.
Congratulations, guys.
We did it. The Lakers they love tournaments. Okay. They're like, they really want to play. They want to play in the in-season tournament. They're really motivated for the play-in tournament. They love tournaments. If someone can convince them that the NBA finals is a tournament, like, this team is going to be unstoppable.
It would be funny if
like,
just got broken into
the
5
regular season to them. It's like, guys, this is like a big 82 game long tournament to determine who goes to the next tournament, which then determines who wins the overall tournament.
There's your answer right there. I can't believe Darvin hasn't thought of it. I can, but I can't.
To your point though, like, I will add, like, I understand why people are down on this season. Hell, I've been down on this season. Like, the last few weeks have not been fun to watch.
No.
And it's like, again, the vibes are truly terrible. There was sort of that report of, originally starting with sort of that Darvin had sort of lost the locker room. And then obviously a much bigger platform reports similarly from, again, with all due respect to you, more sources. It's like, okay, yeah, this is something that
an editor,
it's an editor. And like, this is something that is really, really out there now. Like, this is more than just sort of like, hey, like, every team has one guy that's like, yeah, the head coach has lost me. You're Jonathan Kuminga, so to speak, like, every team has every team has one guy that is like upset about their role and like the coach has lost or whatever. Like, that's just bad. Anyone who's been on a basketball team knows that there's always someone who's pissed at the coach about their playing time or whatever. But like, to have, that many people upset about it, to have sort of, sort of like you said, your reports of like discord in the organization, I will say I was at the Raptors game a week ago today, a game that they won. And it was just amazing to see how bad things looked to be on the bench. Like, this is something, I was sitting in section, I believe it was like 118. It's like basically to the right of the bench if you're looking at the court. And I was watching these timeouts, the entire time. And,
you
just
sent me
for
a clip.
Just for like, what's going on, and sort of, how are guys feeling? How's LeBron specifically sort of reacting to all of this? And if he interacted with Darvin during that game, it was maybe once that I saw, and it was Darvin coming over and saying something to him as he was getting set to check in at the scorer's table. He was, every single time out, he was either like sort of near it and looking off in the opposite direction, or he was sitting, if he wasn't in the game, he was sitting on the very end of the bench, the only player sort of not engaging. And so sort of, to the reason why you feel like it's an F is, like, if he's feeling like that and he's feeling that kind of way about how the head coach is doing, and, does not seem to necessarily be receiving his message. I think it sort of would be my takeaway from that. And, it's not good. And I get why, I think the reason I'm going C a little more positive, I'm considering maybe D, but is that they're still, despite all of that, they're still sort of in the hunt. The season is not lost. They still can, as we saw last year, they can still turn this thing around with the sprint to the finish. Although, again, to your point, having LeBron and AD this healthy and still having things be going this terribly, as much as we like to joke, the team should not have actually been built around Gabe Vincent's availability. And, that's kind of tough.
Here's where I checkmate even that point. The Lakers are currently, again, a game below 500. They are in the 10 spot. They have to now kind of sprint to the finish to keep up, because that's what it's going to be. The conference is still just as tough. They are going to have to sprint and claw and all of those things to
You would think Utah's going to fall out here. It would be of one of the saving graces here. You would think Utah's going to fall out.
Hopefully, but you hoped that last year. It didn't happen until the third or fourth game
until they traded half their starters to the Lakers and then tanked at the end of the season.
They're still right back there, but I even granting, and it's a good point, I'm not necessarily disagreeing that with all of this bullshit, they still are in a position to potentially make that kind of a run. But they are in this position. It's kind of a miracle that a 39-year-old LeBron James has only missed a couple games for precautionary reasons, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a miracle that Anthony
they really
Davis,
should just list him as LeBron James, parentheses, 39 years old, is out tonight. I think he's earned
LeBron James. Google age. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't need to tell us what the injury. We get it. I think Anthony's 43. I think I'm 33.
Literally so last night I finished work at 3:30 in the morning and then just collapsed onto my bed and apparently didn't move all night. And my neck legit hurts. So when you say LeBron James, 39 years old, I can relate.
That's what happens,
But so again, not disagreeing with what you're saying. And I think that's a great point when it comes to setting expectations here moving forward. But the fact that they currently sit here and now have such slim margin for error, if LeBron tweaks something, hoping that he doesn't, right? Yeah. If AD again tweaks something and they miss some time here, the Lakers have no margin for error to work with there.
And again, not to be morbid, but based on those guys' seasons in the past, you would expect that even with a minor thing, they're gonna miss a week or two at some point here.
Yeah.
History would make us believe that at some point they are going to have some level of absence, whether it's serious or not.
Yeah, and if that happens, they currently sit at the 10 spot. And where do you sit after that week or so that one or both of them miss, right? And now look, last year they had really bad injury luck.
Yeah.
And maybe this season is the positive regression from that last season. Not to say that there is any link or correlation between the two, but sometimes luck swings both ways.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what they have to hope for here. And the fact that I find myself, because, and again, this isn't against you in particular here, but I keep on seeing the point of well, maybe the roster isn't that good. And I will grant that I'm very stubborn, and I will grant that I was high coming into this season with this roster, and I thought that it made a whole bunch of sense. And maybe I'm just refusing to acknowledge that maybe I was wrong about this roster. But I just don't know how you gauge this roster, you grade this roster, given how bad Ham has been at his job. The Lakers last night, all of the beat reporters last night apparently misheard Darvin Ham because it was so obvious that the lineup that he should have gone with was so obvious right there. And everybody was finally, cool. The season can finally get underway here. He's going back to the lineup that got him to the Western Conference Finals last year. But nope. No, Darvin's like, oh, you guys thought I was good at my job. You idiots. Like, and then he goes with the lineup that begins the
It's
season.
like, wait,
was
Dave, you
terrible
thought I was
already.
benching Torian? I just saw your tweet. No.
So yeah, it's hard for me to say, and we obviously talk a lot off of the air, a lot more off of the air than on it. And one of the things that you and I went back and forth on is the slice of blame pie that I would serve to Darvin Ham. And to me, I don't know how much pie is left for anybody else, because even the other issues that I could attribute to other people, I feel like I could trace right back to Darvin. Right? Like he to me, and so long as he remains the head coach, like even if, and we're going to go through trade ideas here in a little bit, but even if the Lakers have another great deadline, because they had a great deadline last year, let's say they have another great one here, I don't know how willing I am to trust what this roster is capable of, because Darvin's still standing there with his hands in his pockets. And like, so long as he remains there, and so long as there is this like rift in the organization, because basketball ops knows that there's a ceiling on this team because he stands there, and so long as Rob and Jeannie basically staple their tenures to Darvin Ham, that's essentially what they've done. Like when you see all of these reports, they went on like a leaking media tour for Darvin last week. It was insane. Like, you don't see that very often.
I could say I don't feel like I'm violating anything by saying this, because I wasn't like credentialed at the game, and so like normally if I'm it's like, you don't want to talk about other people's sourcing or whatever, but
Yeah.
like I was just a fan. I was there in attendance pregame. I saw Rob making the rounds. I definitely it was interesting to see all the people sort of coming out with stories about Darvin and how much support he had, and yeah.
I mean, you don't even have to be there for it. You could see it in their writing.
Yeah.
Ham keeps attributing it, right? Like Ham keeps on saying that Jeannie texted me about this stuff, and like that's fine or whatever. I think it's abject insanity to staple your tenure as the lead decision maker in the organization to somebody as clearly inept as Darvin is. I think that's crazy to me. But like, your call, Jeannie, and your call, Rob, and like that's why, with as much as everything that has gone wrong here for the Lakers, the reason I consider it an F is they've been in control of all of the things that went wrong, and the things that they don't have control over have gone well, i.e., LeBron and AD's health. So, like, if that turns, if that luck turns,
there are
then like,
some things.
how are they going to control?
Let's be fair. There are some things that are outside of their control that have gone wrong and that go wrong. This is not to make an excuse necessarily. Like every team has injuries. Every team has, guys that had a long summer or, something going on, or there's some context to their struggles or whatever. Like this is just life, and this is the NBA. But, like I can't blame Darvin for Austin playing in FIBA and coming in with tired legs, clearly, and sort of his jump shot not being there. I can't blame Darvin for, Gabe Vincent, who they thought was going to be a major part of their rotation, like getting hurt. Like there's certain things. My point was not that you can't blame Darvin for a lot of things, or maybe even the majority of things that have gone wrong with this team, especially considering, that again, like he was sort of billed as the leader of men, like guy that was going to unite the locker room. And then it sort of seems like he's lost a decent chunk of it. And that was supposed to be sort of the strong suit. And it's like, at that point, what are you bringing to the table? But my point was more that, again, I think that this roster does not fit as well as I think everyone was hoping it would. I think that there's a lot of guys there's a lot of options, and there's a lot of lineups that you could play. But I think that there's a lot of guys that are starting to show their sort of limits as more sort of one-way contributors. And I think that has sort of made this puzzle a little bit harder to solve, to be as fair as possible to Darvin, who I don't think has done a good job. But I do think that there are real contextual things there that have not necessarily aided him.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Like the Lakers were basically banking on Austin taking a leap forward this year. He hasn't. They were banking on Vando taking a leap forward, especially offensively. He got worse. They were hoping that Rui would recapture some of what he did in the postseason.
It's bad. Like his defense is back, but the offense is it's scary. It's like it's worse than the playoffs last year.
We were joking on All Access Lakers last night, and like it's insane, Harrison, that he's averaging like 2 points a game or something like that, and the
Yeah.
defense isn't guarding him.
Yeah.
Like you know how bad you have to be to not be guarded and not take
He
advantage
looks
of that and score
he looks
occasionally.
afraid to shoot layups, Anthony.
Yeah.
Like it is, yeah,
Yeah.
it's worrying. And like I can see how you could look at that and be like, I don't necessarily think that guy's the best fit in the starting lineup alongside LeBron and AD when we're trying to get them space. You know, like
Yeah.
I think that is a defensible call, to be honest.
So yeah, I guess
The one that I couldn't
would,
defend was the continuing to start Cam. Like that
Yeah.
is sort of the like, because that's the same problem. It's like he's looking at Vando and he's like, man, that guy sucks at offense. And then he's like, I better play Cam Reddish 35 minutes a game. You know, it's
yeah.
like Cam is sort of showing us that like more confident Vando isn't necessarily like a helpful offensive player either. You know,
Imagine Vando just pulling in transition from 3. Yeah, that's fair. What I will say though, and this gets us to the second point here on the show, is that through all of that, through all of this noise, through all of this nonsense, through all of the bad coaching, LeBron and AD have been so spectacular that they have kept the Lakers in this spot.
yeah.
And again, that to me proves, and I can't believe that they have to, it is so
And not
unfair.
to take LeBron for granted, but I have to say, especially AD, you know, like the defense with him off the floor is it's embarrassing.
Yeah. Yeah. Although Wood has been better. Like since Wood has been playing better, like the defense doesn't look as bad. But
and since
for
they stopped
stretches
having
of the
Wood
season,
switch,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. when it was Hayes instead of Wood back there, it was just like, just go on. Just go score.
It's like,
just
oh man,
foul.
this guy's trying really hard while he gives up layups, though. So, you know, we got to keep him in the rotation.
But like what I was going to say is it feels almost unfair that, again, you and I are going to sit here and make the point that LeBron and AD have proven that they are worth gambling on again, right? Because
I had PTSD seeing this little sub headline to the side of like, remember when the passive aggressive leak off of 2022, when that was like a thing, the Lakers were like, LeBron and AD, what have they proven? You know, they got to show us they know how to win.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, because I saw that like the conversation was starting of like, you know, if they fall out of the play-in, is it really worth saving this season? And it's like, you're going to waste another season, especially this season from Anthony Davis. Harrison, if the Lakers had won like 5 or 6 more games this season, he'd be a legit MVP candidate.
Yeah.
Like flat out.
And it's
like he's been incredible this year.
Yeah. What do you need these guys? It's like, you know, like, oh, you know, we're just gonna we got to prove that these guys are worth what do you mean worth investing in? You know, it's like, what are you? Are you a basketball team? Are you trying to win basketball games? You know, like these guys, they're still pretty good at that. You know, I don't know. Are you betting that in 2029 you're going to have better players on the team that you need those picks to invest around? You know,
and
not the way this is going.
And so like, well, and here's where I'll do the in fairness thing, right? It's insane that LeBron at 39 years old is this good. Like, I don't think the Lakers,
they keep betting on him to fail. They're like, well,
I do legitimately think, legitimately is the wrong word to use. I do kind of sort of think that like the Lakers are looking at this like, how is he still doing this?
Yeah.
You know, and part of you, like if it was you making the decisions here, I know you're very risk averse, right? And so like you at some point would be like, man, it's tough to keep on. The trades that I'm going to be talking about here is involving the 2029 first round pick. The next pick after that the Lakers would be able to trade would be like 2031. We're talking about almost a decade out from here. And you're doing that to, again, retool around a 39-year-old LeBron.
To continue to build around LeBron in 2031.
You might.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, I can kind like when I say it, like, devoid, like completely void of other context and what we've seen from those guys this year. Okay, I can kind of get it in a vacuum. But the problem is, this isn't happening in a vacuum. We're watching Anthony Davis play absolutely special basketball what he did last night to the Oklahoma City Thunder, where he just decided, oh, that's right, I can just dunk on everybody. Like that was the thing that was insane, like that was driving me bonkers against the Jazz. The game previously was he was doing all like this floater stuff and complicated layup stuff and trying to get to the free throw line. And last night he was just like, oh, that's right, I'm a pterodactyl. Boom, and like it was just so you have him doing that. He's refound his jumper this season, which is a huge shot in the arm. LeBron has been incredible. They found a way for him to be effective and kind of efficient on defense with that like week or so that we saw him operating as kind of like the free safety or middle linebacker in the middle of the defense. Like they are clearly, to me, well worth trading, not just the 29 pick, but if the right deal comes along, and I know how high the Lakers are on Austin, I personally would be really bummed if the Lakers decided to trade Austin. I don't think Murray is the guy that you trade him for. I for damn sure don't think Levine is the guy that you trade him for. But if like the right name comes along, right, that would be such a clear upgrade, Austin shouldn't be untouchable, and the reason that nobody else can be deemed untouchable is because of the way that those guys are playing, to me. And the fact that we are still here having this conversation, I think kind of highlights the ineptitude at the very top, because we shouldn't have to keep making this point. This is like the 5th trade deadline in a row where it's like, yeah, you got to fix this because clearly those guys are worth gambling on. The year that they're last year, right, going into the trade deadline last year, I felt like I was taking crazy pills because I was like, how is hey, surround LeBron and AD with like decent role players and shooting, and I promise they're going to win basketball games. How is that the outlier take? Like I was out on an island with that take, and immediately they make that trade, and boom, it was just like immediate. They go on that run. And I think again this year, if
it was almost like someone running with a weighted vest, like training for a sprint with like weighted vest or whatever, and they took the weighted vest off, and they were ready to go.
Yeah, it's like those.
Like, oh my god, this is so easy now.
Yeah. Oh god, I used to hate that parachute. Ooh, that stupid parachute that you would run wind sprints with was just terrible. And then you took it off, or like the opposite is the opposite of the case is where you jump on a trampoline and then you try to jump on like regular ground and you feel like you're just stuck. That's what it's like to play with Cam Reddish, I think. But like I think
New rust was dropped.
But I feel like again I'm taking crazy pills anytime and to be clear, it is so far the like there are very few people who are actually making that point. We haven't yet seen reports of it, but I'm telling you, if we start to see them, and we might, the Lakers might start leaking that as a form of posturing or whatever. But if you start seeing that, like, please dunk on it every opportunity that you can, because it is such an asinine stance. Like these two guys are two of the most like talented and best players that you will ever see wear a Lakers uniform. And they are playing
16 game players at this point. Like we saw them go up a level in the playoffs last year.
Yeah. And
we saw them go up a level in in-season tournament games. Like we know that they can activate that. They just can't do it for an entire regular season.
Yeah. And I just, I know that I'm kind of straw manning this, but I'm doing so because I know that those leaks are coming, right? You just feel like
if you don't believe in that, then, go ahead and trade LeBron to a team that's going to draft Bronny and get some assets back. It's like if you're like, I'm not saying the Lakers should do that, but I'm saying if you're going to do this like sort of middle ground thing where it's like, I don't know what these guys have really proven, like, you're wasting everyone's time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and again, we're trying this out on the fly. We're building this airplane mid-flight, and what Harrison is going to do, he has his 5 power ranking items or topics that he is going to go with. I have my trade ideas that I'm going in. I'll go in ascending order. In terms of not likeliest, I don't have enough information to say that they are however likely or whatever. But in terms of At least names that I am most interested in. That's what I'll go. So I'll start with the person that I'm least interested in, and I'll finish with the name that I am most interested in as the centerpiece of these trades. And we'll see where we wind up. Harrison, do you want to go first or second here?
I can go first. So I
All
I
right.
want to put everyone in a little bit of a lighter mood. I know that Lakers Twitter was very, like, in our audience and everyone, just the fan base at large was very upset last night by the starting lineup, sort of rope-a-dope accidental. It's seemingly accidentally. I will say, like, it didn't seem like, I don't think Darvin did that just to like make everyone mad, but if he did, I respect it. That was a very funny troll. And, but
That was incredible.
I want to put in perspective for people, like I honestly, I feel like Taurean Prince has gotten a little bit too much hate. And so I decided to power rank the top 5 most unjustifiable coach faves, like off the top of my head, guys that every coach, we've all gone through this with, I'm going to do Lakers one specifically, but every fan base has this where it's like the coach has a guy that no one can understand why they're playing as much as they're playing. And then the whole fan base is upset about it and whatever. And, so I am going to rank sort of those guys in recent Lakers history, over my time sort of covering the team and
to make you feel better about Taurean Prince getting those minutes.
Exactly. It could be worse. And so, I'm again ranking them in order
Has
of
been
like,
worse.
Yes, exactly. So like number 5 is Taurean Prince. I'm going to go with, because again, like I think he's getting more minutes, more trust, more of a longer leash than he should, but he's not a bad player. He's shooting 42%, 42.7% from 3 this year. After a rough start,
he's promise.
Yeah, exactly. He had that. He 100% guaranteed that he would shoot 40%. He said 100% of the time he'll shoot 40% of the time and make them, on media day or whatever the quote was. And so, again, Taurean Prince 5th because he's getting, a few more minutes than he probably should, a little bit longer of a leash. Don't necessarily know that he definitively should be starting, but it could be a lot worse, as I'm going to remind you and just sort of put in perspective that, things can always go a little more terribly.
I agree, Harrison, like with the central point of what you're trying to accomplish here. I want to be clear. Like, I would even go so far as to say that Taurean has like far outplayed his contract and he's not on a minimum.
Again, it's not that like he's a bad player. It's that Darvin Ham challenges an iffy call on Taurean Prince in the opening minutes of the first quarter is like a podcast bit I could not even come up with. It's
yeah,
like if I was trying to be funny and think of humorous scenarios, like I wouldn't have even come up with that on my own. And so it's like that level of almost parody trust that is sort of what we're critiquing. I think it's not that Taurean Prince is a bad player or seemingly like not a bad dude. Like it seems like he sort of knows his role. He's doing his best. I don't sense that. Like I certainly don't think he's one of the guys that has lost faith in Darvin Ham. He's going out there and he's giving it his all.
that line he said, I think Edwin tweeted
he's never
it out.
Like had more trust or whatever it was. Like
he's never felt
more supported.
Yeah, more or like more wanted in an organization.
Like, oh man, no way, dude.
Objectively true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I agree with the central point though on Prince that I think he is like hell. I don't even hate.
He's become too much
starting.
of a scapegoat. Like he's not as bad as like angry fans who are upset about the same things we are. Like he probably should not have as big of a role as he has. And he's probably he's been a little bit over asked, I think, in his role as like sort of the defensive stopper guy. Like that's not really what he is. I don't know that that's necessarily what he's ever been. He's got a little too much trust, but it can be worse. And so I just sort of wanted to flag that out and call that out and just say like, hey, Taurean Prince has been fine. I think if he can scale back the role a little bit, I think can be a viable member and like a helpful contributor to a playoff run. And so I just sort of wanted to highlight that.
So Taurean Prince on the season is averaging 31 minutes a game.
Yeah.
That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot. And
that's got to be, is that third on the Lakers? I would assume so.
It is. Yeah. It's AD with 36, LeBron playing 34 and a half. And then Prince is at 31. Austin is at 30.1. And then D'Lo is at 29. So that's everybody who is like in that 30-minute a night range.
Yeah.
If you scale that back, Harrison, to like 25 minutes a night
Yeah.
and handed out more of that. Like Rui this season has played 23 minutes a night. And
Yeah.
if you basically if you kind of swapped that or evened them out and then gave out a few extra minutes, say to like Max or somebody like that, like that's fine. That's a perfectly
Yeah.
fine role for somebody making $4.5 million a year
Yeah.
and playing the way that Torian is playing this season. Perfectly fine. It is because of the way that he's being used. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning here. Like every gripe that I have with the Lakers, I can trace back to Ham. And like you've done this with me long enough that like once
Yeah.
I'm out on somebody, I am out and I am very capable
Yes.
of
Yeah.
tying myself in knots to arrive at that conclusion about somebody, once I'm out. But like with Torian, I think I would go so far as to say he's having a great season. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, for what was expected of him and all of that stuff. And
Especially
if you
for like his contract. Yeah. I would agree. And so I think that we should flag that out for, just sort of take this moment to, as much as we've joked about Torian and, all that stuff, like he's not a bad player.
Yeah. Yeah. I find myself like kind of feeling sorry for Prince sometimes. Because
He's
it's
not a
so easy.
showstopper, but he's not a bad player.
Yeah. And all right. So I'm
There are
going
many
in
of those in the
ascending
league. Yeah.
no, but it certainly isn't Prince. But all right. So my number 5 trade here, or the 5th guy on my list that I am like, I am the least interested in acquiring this guy than I am of everybody else that I'm going to bring up here. My first trade is with the Memphis Grizzlies. The Lakers send Gabe Vincent and Cam Reddish to Memphis for Luke Kennard. And you could go with like an extra second rounder or something like that. I don't think
I'm not giving up a
need
first
much
for Luke Kennard. I think,
No. Like a distant second rounder that's conditional and all of those things. I'm not positive how well Kennard would even fare in the playoffs. I know against the Lakers, he just doesn't miss shots. It's insane. And I think that's why eventually he'll make his way to the Lakers' radars, because he's played well enough against the Lakers for long enough that like Rob was gonna be like, man, that guy kills us all the time. Let's
speaking of minute swaps and whatever, if the Grizzlies would have swapped his minutes with Dylan Brooks, last playoffs, some of those games might have gone a little differently.
Yeah, probably. I'm gonna bring it back up here so that people who are watching on YouTube can see it. So again, Reddish, who I'm not sure is how much he's going to play for the rest of the year. He goes to the Grizzlies. Same goes for Gabe. They are dealing with the same injury, basically. And it makes me nervous about, having seen how it's gone for Gabe, how well that's going to play out for Cam. The Grizzlies season is basically over at this point anyway. They are not going to have Desmond Bane for 6 weeks at least. Obviously not going to have Ja for the rest of the year. Aren't going to have Steven Adams for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I was going to say, as soon as they got the Ja update, their season was over. It didn't. The Desmond Bane thing is just like like cherry on top of the poop sundae.
I don't think this, like, if you wanted to try to utilize this kind of a package to go out and get Marcus Smart, I don't think it would be like, you would have to attach a lot more draft capital. But this seems like a nice,
you'd have to
easy
use first
tweak
to get Smart.
Yeah. This would be a nice, easy tweak that would be relatively painless, where you're turning 2 guys who aren't going to, be a part of your rotation here moving forward into a knockdown shooter. That again, I'm not sure is really a 16 win player, but I think could, add something to a position of need, because the Lakers are still pretty thin at shooting guard. What are your thoughts there?
So I like it if it's like a second round pick, because to me, like, this is a whole separate thing and we don't have to go down this tangent. Like, if I'm the Lakers, I don't really need second round picks. This team, you can buy a second round pick. If you like a guy, you can, it's not my money. I don't care. So like, trade out all your seconds. Like, this team, it's shown that the way that the draft goes now and whatever, like, you're going to be able to get your guys like Austin Reeves that just tell teams, they're like, no, I don't want a 2-way from you. I'll just go undrafted. And so again, like I'm not saying that the Lakers can find an Austin Reeves every single undrafted free agency or anything, but they've shown that their scouting is pretty good and that they're going to get guys that want to come here, that want to sort of play under the spotlight. Like I think that they, I'm not worried about second round picks. So like, yeah, if you're throwing in two guys that I am not really counting on for the rest of the year and a draft pick that is not real to me, then yeah, I will say you make that move, especially because as we're going to get into in number 4 on my unjustifiable coach faves rankings, Cam Reddish.
I'm surprised he isn't higher. This is an upset.
Well, just wait.
That means we're truly scarred.
Again, it could be worse. But that said, he's shooting 39.1% from the field. That would be great if it was from 3, but it is from the field. He was at one point when I checked about a week ago, shooting about 50% on layups, which again, like 50%, our brains are trained like, oh, 50% is good. 50% is not good on layups, and like around the rim and, in the restricted area. Like that is a bad percentage. And, he's, I think, an overrated defender. He clogs the floor, 33.7% from 3. Teams don't defend him. And he still, again, it's like to the point of like confident Vando. I don't know if it's necessarily like helping you more on offense because we've sort of seen what that looks like with Cam Reddish, and it's not good. So, again, I think he should take all the time that he needs to recover. And,
Yeah, Cam is a tough one because
every player in the league with his level of athleticism can have a 2-week good defensive stretch. We've seen this. This is sort of a theory of mine going back the last couple of years. Like, remember when Stanley Johnson came in off the street and clamped James Harden on Christmas? All of these high lottery pick guys, like they can activate that for a couple games. They just can't keep it going. And we've seen, he had that going for a couple weeks there and then sort of fell off and started to get hurt and, all of this stuff. And, again, I don't like wish him injury or wish him ill or anything like that. Like he, I think as a guy that's tried to rehab his career, I think has made a good faith effort at it, has done the things that the Lakers ask him to do. He's just not that great. And so, I would not be against sort of, attaching him in whatever deals that you send out so that Darvin is forced to continue to play Max over him because Max is better at basketball, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think the Cam thing is tough.
Been madder than a couple weeks ago when someone tweeted at me like that, why do you want to trade for Caruso? Because we already have Cam and Vando can sort of do those defensive things. And we've seen that teams don't defend.
It needs to be that Arthur meme, the fist meme that they make, right? Where it's a shaking fist.
I had to put the phone down and like set it away. I was so upset.
It's that shaking fist meme, but you always wear like wrist braces, so it's like that shaking fist.
It's Photoshop the carpal tunnel brace. Yeah.
All right. My next one we'll stay at that position, and I take that back. This is my fourth, the player fourth ranked on my players that I'm interested in bringing in list. This one's kind of tough to analyze thoroughly. This player is kind of tough to analyze fully, but it is Malcolm Brogdon. The Lakers would send out Gabe, Torian, and Jalen Hood-Schifino for Brogdon. I don't think you need to attach a first rounder to him because of the injury concerns.
I also think at this point, JHS is the first rounder in this type of trade.
Yeah, he's like that. He's like a late first, early second in terms of just like raw value. I think I would probably staple like a couple second rounders to it just to sweeten the pot for Portland. No, the one thing now, and also, and again, I heard it secondhand and then checked in on it. So I do know that the Lakers are interested in Brogdon. So I guess that's something worth taking note of as well. But in this one, it's tough to analyze Brogdon because things have been so weird in Portland. Yeah. You don't know how hurt he's actually been because he's missed some time again this year. Now, if you're just basing his availability off of the way that his career has played out, then that would lead one to believe that his injuries this year have been legit and that he
was medically red flagged by a lot of teams in the draft, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Well, I think there was a trade that he was going to be a part of that got reneged because of injury concerns
this summer,
like that.
The physical.
Yeah. So
the
like
first trade.
And that's why, like, I tweeted this last night. Matt and I were going back and forth, and I tweeted this last night, and the Blazer fan took issue with it. And was like, we're totally getting a first rounder for him. I'm like, from who? From whom are you getting a first rounder from Malcolm Brogdon? That's just not happening. He has, going on 40 plus million bucks left on his contract. You have the injury concern, and like he has low key like made it known when he isn't happy with the situation. So there's all of that to consider, and that's why he's actually fourth on my preference here. And I would also say that people around the league have wondered how hurt he actually is, or are the Blazers basically keeping him as healthy as possible to be moved at the highest possible trade return, right? So
I mean, they'd be negligent if they weren't. He's not going to be a part of their long-term future.
Right. So for those who were concerned about his injuries and bringing him in, you're trading an already injured Gabe for him. You would be trading Prince. I was going to go for the comedic bit of like coming on the heels of you saying like us complimenting Torian and then me trading him, but like I can't possibly have Brogdon below Kennard. What do you think of this one? What do you think of this trade?
I'm not that big of a fan of Brogdon, and I'm not that into it. Again, you're not giving up like a lot, but I don't know that like with his injury history, like I'm not necessarily counting on that like Brogdon's going to be better, for this team, going down the stretch run than Torian Prince is going to be. I mean, I know that's sort of blasphemous, but
yeah,
like Prince is at least durable. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, like he would probably help when he was on the floor. But also that sort of, unless you're making other trades, that sort of creates another problem in the backcourt where it's like now you have Brogdon, D'Lo, and Austin trying to figure out how to share the ball with LeBron. Like I don't know that I necessarily like that one unless you're making other deals involving D'Lo sort of in conjunction with it.
Yeah, I would basically, the way I would go about that is like if you bring in Brogdon, then you use D'Lo to go out and get a better wing, right? Go out and get like Dorian Finney-Smith or something like that, and retooled that way. But the reason I like it, and actually even if you keep D'Lo and you do have Austin, D'Lo, and Brogdon, I thought it was pretty clear last night that the Lakers could use another ball handler, and if you basically turn Gabe,
how do you feel about 3-guard lineups with those three guys?
Oh my God, that's a good point. I take it back. All right, what's your next one?
I'm just saying. So number 3 on top 5 most unjustifiable coach faves that I can remember on off the top of my head. Number 3, DeAndre Jordan. Not a lot necessary, but just can you believe that guy started for a number of games during the start of the 2021-22 year?
That's NBA champion DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah, I know
finals minutes that mattered and played them well. All-time upset there. He was terrible.
Counterpoint, his last pass in a Laker uniform that nearly killed Rich Paul.
Was that, I think, because he got benched right after that, right? And I don't think played for the rest of the game.
I believe that no.
Pass
I think it literally was his last possession in a Laker uniform.
That was insane.
That was when Frank is like, I've seen enough now. At this point, right in this moment.
Yeah. That is 100% ammunition for those who said like Frank wasn't doing a good job on his way out the door, because DeAndre should not have been starting on that team. All right, the next name here on my list, I just brought him up. Dorian Finney-Smith. The Lakers would send Gabe and Shafino.
I love There's a bit of a trend back.
Yeah. I miss Lonnie.
Snuck that in.
But the Lakers would be getting back Dorian Finney-Smith. They would also be getting back Lonnie Walker as like that third ball handler there. I don't think Darvin would be tempted to play 3-guard lineups with Lonnie as he was previously and as he might be with Brogdon. So that makes me feel a little bit better about this. Finney-Smith is like, I've loved his game for a long time.
Yeah,
he would immediately be like probably the Lakers' best wing. And so like, I guess I'd be a little nervous that like, would Darvin play him over Torian? But Like again, you're turning Gabe Vincent, and there's a trend here, right?
And
You're turning.
I'm assuming you're attaching a first in this.
You're not
getting
think
it done without
protected,
first. I don't think the Nets are giving him up without some kind of first.
A protected first, but I guess that's fair. I would say a protected first.
And Lonnie too. Lonnie's been good for them. I don't know that they're just throwing these guys away for Jay to take.
Well, they're going to lose Lonnie anyway. You're going to lose, they're going to lose Lonnie after the season because, unless they're going to use cap space to re-sign him or something like that. But, I think again, and like essentially the trend that I'm hoping you guys are picking up on is I would rather turn, and I mentioned this last night on the show with Raj, I would rather turn guys on this roster who aren't doing anything for you in your rotation into additions to the rotation.
Yeah,
I would rather do that than and Torian, obviously, I just traded him a trade ago, but I would rather do that than carve out a big ass chunk of your rotation to go out and get a Zach LaVine or a DeJounte Murray. All right, what's your next? Who's your next player?
Yeah, the only thing that I want to also note on that trade is that, the only reason I think in my mind to be concerned about trading firsts and stuff down the line is that, this summer, I think you brought this up with Aaron on the show, which I did not necessarily realize until you had said it. But this summer you can trade 3 picks, So does 3 picks plus, salary ballast, whatever, does that get you in more interesting conversations this summer? It is something to consider. And so I guess maybe I wasn't being totally fair to Rob earlier when I was like, you aren't being serious if you don't go all in this season. I get that part of it. You got to do something, but I also get being cautious about including a first in it. And especially in a deal like that, you're basically including 2 firsts because you're including a guy that you just used a first on. Whatever you think of JHS and how he's been, and if you believe in that pick or not, and I know that you shouldn't necessarily let hindsight determine these moves, but you are sort of, punting 2 picks at that point.
Yeah. And I think that would be, I could have swapped that one and my, I guess, second favorite trade here for that reason that would cost you at least a protective first. And the second one that I have won't. The first one will, but the second one won't. But anyway, all right, we're running out of time here. Who's your next player here who scarred you for life?
Number 2, Avery Bradley. Remember how the Lakers won a title in the bubble because Avery Bradley didn't go and that forced Frank to play Alex Caruso?
Man, to this day, it the way that I used to lose my mind about, remember they had the backcourt of Avery Bradley and Rajon Rondo?
Yeah.
And that was something that they were using throughout the year when every single impact number was screaming at you.
Rondo Alex was Caruso almost on this list. Way better. He was so good in the playoffs that I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. But Bradley's a good one. I can't believe he's not first. I can't wait to find out who's first if he's second.
Yeah.
My next trade here is for Gary Trent Jr. The Lakers would be sending Gabe Vincent, Hood Schifino, Cam Reddish. I don't think you need to include a pick here because you're essentially doing that with Schifino, and Trent is expiring anyway.
It's an expiring contract. You're basically doing this, I guess. I don't know that the Raptors are doing this to take on 3 years of Gabe Vincent, without some sort of pick equity while he's hurt. I think you'd have to include at least a second. But yeah, it does seem remember there was that Haynes report over the summer that, Gary Trent Jr. had an extension imminent with the Raptors and then it just never happened.
And then didn't. Yeah. Same goes for
Siakam. I think you would think you could get him for seconds at this point. I also did not realize he's actually younger than he's mid-20s. I thought that he was approaching 30. He's theoretically a guy that you could keep and extend, this summer.
I've always loved his game. I've always been a fan of Gary Trent Jr. I think he's so freaking cool. I just love his game. He gets after it defensively. He immediately, the Lakers really, right now, their best, I think, defensive shooting guard on the team is Max Christie. And don't get me wrong, I love Max. He's my large adult son, all of those things. Went around Las Vegas for a solid month telling everybody that I could about how great I think Max is going to be. But if you basically move him into that starting group and he's next to Austin or he's next to D'Lo or whatever, whoever, I think that immediately is a outlook changing addition that doesn't cost you anything in terms of rotational minutes. What
the Raptors are going to do though, right? Is they're going to want Max instead of Cam.
Yeah, I know. Fucking Masai.
Yeah,
Would you do that? Would you do it if it was Max instead of Reddish?
probably.
Yeah, that would hurt. That would
Yeah, I
really
wouldn't
hurt.
like it. I wouldn't enjoy it, but I probably would. I think Gary Trent has just shown more in the NBA. He's like a more proven guy. Like I think you have to do it if you're really going all in.
I think I would really push
But it would
hard.
make me
Like,
very
all right,
sad.
I think I would push hard. Like, here's an extra couple second rounders
Yeah,
to make up for that. I'm holding on to Max though.
and
I'm legitimately like
importantly,
stupid high on Max Christie.
Trent is clutch, and so you could get away with exiling Cam to Canada. So because you're
I
getting one
think,
back.
yeah,
So.
I guess that's yeah. All right. Who's your number one player who scarred you because he was used too much?
Well, Anthony, I can't believe that you didn't get this one or remember it, but it's how could you go with anyone but Ronnie Price?
I just thought of it as you were talking about it. Man,
The
what a good one.
the most unjustifiable. Like he was never good. It really in his career. You know, again with like
Well,
all.
that's not true. He was fine in Utah.
All right, well, whatever. He was never like that good that he should be clearly like, oh, we got to keep this guy in the lineup. He's going to teach these guys how to win. You know,
Yeah.
over playing him over like Lynn was one
Clarkson.
thing, whatever, and like Clarkson. Yeah, the only guy
Clarkson
who's
like
given
would
your
have been
team
like a
any
rookie
hope
of the year candidate
in this
like
lost year. Yeah, it's.
He would have like Clarkson. You consider that I remember writing this specifically. I could probably go through the archives at Forum Blue and Gold, and I said one day it is going to look absolutely stupid that you were playing Ronnie Price over Jordan Clarkson when Clarkson was a rookie.
Perennial 6th man of the year candidate now. It's just.
All right, my last one here. This is probably going to be pretty popular. But the Lakers trade Rui, Gabe, and Hood-Schifino for Caruso and Vucevic. You would have to include a first rounder here. It would have to be unprotected. It probably
would be so
still
funny
would.
if the Lakers sent a first to the Bulls and Levine was not involved in the deal.
I'm telling you, look, Windhorst came out and said it.
Like, I know it's like not. It's just like it's funny to imagine Zach's reaction to them giving up a first rounder for Caruso and Vooch.
Imagine like Caruso saying goodbye to everybody in Zach's face as he's saying goodbye.
Tackles him on the way out of the locker room. It was supposed to be me.
Yeah. Essentially what I'm thinking here is that the Lakers would be giving up the draft capital. They're giving up the rookie first rounder. They're giving up Rui, who I think is
you're
like
swapping
fine.
two sort of like kind of iffy contracts in Rui and Vooch.
Yeah, so Vucevic is going to be expensive here moving forward. Gabe is less expensive there moving forward. Rui, I think, is a useful player moving forward, so that deal doesn't hurt you as much. And like I think Chicago could probably still do better for Caruso, and I know that they are expecting like multiple firsts to even start a conversation with him. This is, I think, the best package that the Lakers could realistically put together, and this is one of the only guys that I would be okay kind of affecting the rotation for is Caruso.
Yeah, I mean, again, a first feels like a lot for that, especially when you're taking on the Vooch contract. But I don't know. I'm not like totally against it, but I don't know. And it's never going to happen because the Bulls are stupid and they're going to keep building around the mid three. So like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. All right. Harrison, you have to run. This has been a blast once again. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and for continuing to tune in the way that you have. Please subscribe here on YouTube. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Please check out Harrison's stuff that he is managing over at SB Nation. And until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Harrison Faigen. And this has been the Lakers Lounge.